Welcome everyone to the third episode of the Hot Drop podcast. This is the one with Gustav from the recently global partnered FaZe clan. And we had a fantastic chat about a lot of things of the past of FaZe, the future sort of coming up into the next year, and just in general about PUBG esports. And in fact, the episode was so long, I made it into two different parts. Partly as well because we're waiting for some stuff to be announced, and that we're already talking about it, but we were talking about it in part 2 that's coming out later in this week. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. If you want to make sure you don't miss part 2, then hit the subscribe button, follow the podcast wherever you're consuming it, and yeah, not going to waste any more of your time. Enjoy the episode. All right, welcome everybody to the third episode already of the Hot Drop podcast. I'm joined by Gustav. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing very good, very good. Very excited for this and honored to be on the podcast as well.
Honored, that's a first. Damn, that sounds nice.
Wow.
I can get used to that. Yeah, it's cool. I've been waiting for this for a bit because obviously there's the whole PUBG thing going on where we're waiting for things to be announced and we're waiting to get to talk about things. And if everything goes according to plan, when this podcast come out, you'll be able to talk about that you guys are global partner in PUBG. And
Yes, sir.
I want to say congrats. It's super nice, especially when you look at Twitter right now. It's just all orgs tweeting that they didn't make it. It must feel nice to be in the program.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like it's so good because like you get so much from it, right? But like at the same time, I feel very sad for like all the other orgs that like it's kind of just like us, right? I'm still excited to see all the others because I actually don't know who the other orgs are yet that are getting it. So like I'm really excited to see that, especially like the Asian ones, because it's gonna be like so much fun to see like what exact teams will you be competing against in all tournaments, right?
Yeah,
Because you don't know that yet.
they're gonna be names you'll see a lot throughout the years for sure. I think it's a really interesting situation right now. Because it's nobody even really knows how much it means to be a global partner because there's so little information.
Yeah.
But then there's still tons and tons of teams being super frustrated about not being global partner. Some teams, some players being super frustrated. So everyone is like anticipating this to be sort of the massive thing. And then suddenly you get those news and it seems like there's not even going to be an APAC partner team, maybe?
I mean, saw that as well. It's crazy.
It's just like, what's going on there? Like, we're in a weird situation right now. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, you can have like 4 Chinese partners then or something. Like I don't know how they are getting the 8 teams, but like I personally don't even know like 100% yet what comes with being a global partner. Like I haven't gotten that information yet as a player either. So like I mean obviously I'm really excited and hyped about it.
Yeah.
But like I don't know everything yet. Also we don't know like the exact tournaments that we know what they're called, but we don't know where they're gonna be and the prize pool and who will be there, how many teams, right?
Everything is up in the air. We don't know the proper schedule, we don't know the formats, we don't know pretty much anything. And I think it's an exciting time. We talked about it in DMs earlier. It's that time of the year where everybody's in crisis in PUBG because it feels like there's like 1 or 2 months after PGC where you don't really know what your future's like, where you don't really know what's going on next year. But I think we're pretty much at the end of that period. I think we're ready to get into season again.
It's often like that in the beginning of the year that you're walking around with PUBG, like you're kind of nervous about the year. You don't know how good it's going to be because for some reason they're waiting so long with announcing it. And then once the year begins, you're like, okay, it's kind of fine. We have another year with good PUBG, right?
We have another circuit. We know what's going on. We have tournaments we're going to be playing.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, but that time at the start of the year is pretty cruel. I think I have like similar things as a freelancer, obviously. You go into late January without having any jobs lined up for the next year. You don't even know. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what you're going to be doing. It's a wild time. Now, you've been through a lot of those seasons. You've been there for a while in the PUBG scene. I thought about it before this podcast. I actually remember the first time I saw your name. I was still playing. We were playing PUBG Online. You know those games you had to sign up for? You had to try and get into the lobby, and you had to try and get points. And you were playing with like a guy, some random called Calvin Klein, you know, like names I've never seen before. and you
Hmm.
were kind of dominating. That was sort of the first time. That's 5 years ago now, I think. Um,
It's crazy. I don't know where those years went. Like
it's
it's
crazy.
like
It
I
makes me
remember
feel
like the
old as
first
well
lands.
sometimes.
Yeah, the first lands were like over 5 years ago now, and I don't know. Like it's insane.
It's wild. That's that's what I want to ask you. Is sort of that surely it must feel more like a job now and less just fun life that it was grinding the game at the start, right?
Hmm. I mean, for sure. Like I've had motivation issues. Like I think if you like I'm in Paris, I've been a player that I've probably been like some people would probably call me lazy. Like I haven't played as much as like if you take a guy like Foss for example, right? Like Foss is like
Yeah.
maybe like Foss doesn't have like the craziest talent, but he got as far as he did because he grinded.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say there were years in my career where I have grinded a lot, and then there's also been some where I haven't, right?
Yeah.
Like as much. And I think that comes a lot from the team environment that you create, like how motivated is everyone to push each other. I think in which some people would probably call my best year, I think, like 2019 TSM, I was
Mm-hmm.
like really, really doing well. I think I grinded a lot that year, but in my head, that was also just the biggest like it was the easiest year to be motivated in because you lived in Berlin. You had such a nice apartment. Like you had every week you would go to this nice studio, play a lot of
Yeah.
competitive games. Like you would know everything. It was just so good motivation. And then I mean I joined FaZe. I was so motivated to win everything.
Yeah.
I get on the team. There was some personal issues on the team that someone had. I'm not gonna say like what and like not between each other, but like
Mm-hmm.
some real life stuff, which made us not able to like scrim that much and play that much, which was really hard for our team. And then COVID happened at the same time, so I think that those first months in phase, like people don't know, but like we didn't play a lot of scrims. We weren't that motivated because of some reasons, and it was really really hard for all of us, I think, to be motivated, right? Because you
Yeah.
went from 2019, this crazy year where you traveled, you lived in Berlin. It was just
It's like
really
the
good.
esports dream, right? You're living in a team house with your
Yeah,
mates. Like your whole life is just playing PUBG, and then suddenly you're going into like a COVID era. It's rough.
and then you yeah and then in 2020, right? Because the thing is we played these first PCSs we
Mm-hmm.
played, but we didn't really know what we were like. Usually you play PCS because you want to qualify for PTC, right? That's like the whole goal. But in 2020 us players didn't even know if there would be a PGI or PTC that year because of COVID. We
Yeah.
had no idea, so like there wasn't really anything to like. I mean, you would win the tournament and that would obviously be huge, and like that would be like so sick, but you weren't really like fighting to get to PTC the same way you are, for example, this year.
You don't have the goal in front of you. You're just playing the game. You don't really know what's gonna happen. Just like we
Yeah.
talked a little bit about that sort of early year period, you just don't have a set goal. It's way harder to full focus. I get that a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's it's a weird topic in PUBG, I think. The whole grinding aspect and sort of how much do you have to play the game? Because I feel like there is a lot of leeway for if you're a certain type of player, you don't have to grind as much.
Yeah.
Um, but then again, you never really know. Would I be a better player if I played, I don't know, 40 hours a week instead of 20? You never really. There's
Yeah.
no easy answer, and then it's very easy to say, yeah. I mean, we're doing fine. Um, we're constantly in the top fives, and my performance is not that bad, right? But you never know what would be going on if you were grinding more.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think my probably my one of my best tournaments, at least, like I would say top three or top two tournament was PCS 6 last year,
Mm-hmm.
where I think I got like 60 kills in 30 games. Like I was right behind Nailab who got like 61.
Yeah.
Like having a 2 KD in PUBG is like in 30
Yeah.
games is so crazy much. And I remember that time, like it was summer and I didn't play the game a lot. Like there, like I just played. We played like maybe scrims 4 or 5 times a week, but I wouldn't play anything but TDM. I felt so good, right? Like my mechanics, like everything. I
Yeah.
played so good that tournament. Also, my in-game leading. I think we finished third, really close behind second that tournament. Um, that worked well for me. And
Yeah.
then like next PCS, I think I maybe got 30 kills. I think we got fifth or something, right? And it didn't work. So like it's so hard. Like what works for you, what doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like obviously, I would say if you grind the game, it's gonna be consistently more like helpful than not playing.
I think there's like a threshold. But if you play more than that, it doesn't really do anything anymore. But like until that threshold, like definitely it helps. And especially if I feel like it's a little bit different if you're on a new team where you have to play a lot to sort of get that chemistry and get the comms straight and all that stuff. Than if you're on a team that's super established with a lot of experienced players. But I think there's also something to be said, like you said before, about the motivation. You know, if everyone's there, if everyone's grinding, there's a bit of a different mindset, I feel like, than if you just like show up for scrims and that's it, right?
Yeah. But there's also a lot of different ways to like have started like spend time in PUBG now. I remember last year, like I spent a lot of time in custom games, for example, right? Which is like as an IGL, I mean, Battlelinks was kind of the guy that started that, and then I think like other IGLs, like maybe like James and me, started like doing as well, because you can like these rocks and these like crazy spots that you can find, right? And how to get there and stuff, like that would give you the other like 10%. And I think as an IGL, like at least I spent like quite some time on Twire, like watching some of the Asian games, and like there's also a lot of time to be put into PUBG that is not just playing the game, but also like watching, for some just PCS Asia, right?
Yeah.
Watching some of the Asians play, like watching like a guy like Tickleton also play. Like, what does he do? He's one of the best mechanical player. Watching example, right? Just watching streams is like that can improve you as well as a player.
100%.
See what they do.
There's one thing there that I find really interesting, which is a lot of the top IGLs watch a lot of Asia and look a lot of at the Asian teams and the top teams. But then we go to Worlds and sometimes it's an NA team, sometimes it's an EU team. I mean, last year it was New Happy, but Heroic was really close. Why do you think Asia is like the example that a lot of people look up to, but they don't always perform that crazy on international tournaments?
I think I don't think that they are better than us at all, the Asian teams. I think the reason why it often comes out as that is because they play so many more tournaments than us. Like you look at like 2019, for example, right? I think that was, in my head, EU's strongest year, even though I know EU just won PTC this year. So it's like, it's weird to say, but that was the year where I think Europe played as many games as Asia. Like we played 100 games in each PEL phase, right? Like 300. We probably played like 300 competitive games that year. Like this year, for example, I don't know how many, but I doubt it's going to be more than 100, right? Like it's probably not going to be more than 100. And Asia plays that many games, and that's why I think they are that good, because like scrims is just not the same. Like scrims is just not the same. Like, you can get some from it, but like when you play a dip or a compound, the way that dip or compound plays out in the real game is so different than in a comp game.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how many times I've seen NLT, or like not Twisted Mind, sorry, play like they have a different name like every 3 months, so it's like hard. But they have played the craziest spots in the world, in like Twisted Minds, like that no one else have just played, that Battle have just found. And those spots only work in comp games. If they try and play them in scrim games, I'm telling you,
they get farmed.
Some guy will just run and nade them because he's just reckless. Oh, this is a scrim game. Let me just go and die for them. And he just run and nade them. People die for it. He would maybe kill them. It's like, fuck.
Or he doesn't even die because it's scrims and there isn't enough people alive to punish him on like long range angles and stuff like that. Yeah. It's so hard to practice in PUBG, I feel like, because every time something goes badly in scrims, you have to think about, would that have gone differently in a tournament? And it's already hard enough in PUBG where you can never say, oh, that would have been the better play or that would have been the worst play, or like a lot of the times it's impossible to say what would have worked better. But then you have that whole other layer on top of it where scrims are not great practice, and you can learn even less, and there's even more insecurity about, oh, would this work in a tournament or it wouldn't.
Sure.
Which is, I think, that's probably part of the reason why it's so hard to grind the game and stay fully motivated, is because you can scrim 5 times a week and it can feel absolutely useless to you in some situations, right?
100%. That is legit why I feel like many people don't grind the game, is because you don't have like let's say like the other top games, like let's just CSGO, League. I don't know about Dota. I don't know anything about Dota, but like League, for example, you have a solo queue leaderboard where it feels so you feel so rewarding to get high elo. You feel so prestigious, right? Like players even get picked through this system, like through the solo queue system. People get scouted, right?
Yeah.
In PUBG, you have a rank system that no one cares about at all anymore. Yeah. Like imagine if they set like top 500 every year. every season would get like some sort of skin in game or reward. It could even be like a reward in real life. They could send you like a goodie bag.
Yeah.
Like, it just has to be something that's not just a badge, because like
Yeah.
you don't care about a badge. Like, come on, right? And then people will grind for it, and it would feel so rewarding. It would feel so nice. But
There's
there's
so
just
many things you
nothing.
could do there that would be
Mm-hmm.
so good. And even if I've talked about it so much, you could have weekly ladders. You could say on the weekend, like you can
Yeah.
opt into a ladder. All your ranked games count, and then the top X% of players get this reward. Maybe the top 50 get a super special reward or something. And they can take a month or whatever to sort out the cheaters and only give rewards to the people that didn't get banned. Whatever. There's so much cool things you could do.
Just be like one guy sitting there manually like sorting the cheaters out,
Yeah.
right? Like, and
Yeah.
and they could make it like Fortnite. I think Fortnite did it perfectly, where they had tournaments in game
Yeah.
that you could just sign up through, right? And everyone could just sign up. It was so simple and so easy, instead of doing it through these third
Weekly
programming
ladders,
websites.
right? And teams can qualify to a monthly tournament where you can win a whole bunch of G-Coin. Doesn't even cost them anything. It's just G-Coin, you know?
Yeah,
There's
it's just
no loss. There's nothing to it except people go from ranked to playing competitive. It'd be so sick.
yeah,
But
it would.
yeah, it's hard to not get into one of those rant conversations where you wonder all the cool things PUBG could do.
They could do unlimited stuff, but let's hope this year will be better, right?
There's a lot of things. I think Martin made a tweet recently and said the one thing you would change to PUBG esports, and I just want to write like a letter. I don't want to write one thing. It's just so many things you could do.
The game is just so good. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy how good the game is and fun. Like the gun mechanics is so good, but there could just be so much more done, and the game would be like
Yeah.
the most popular again.
Yeah,
I'm sure of it.
Anyways, we should talk a little bit about FaZe Clan.
Yes, sir.
And I went into this interview thinking, super interesting interview, of course. A lot of insane players on your team, but you did fairly poorly in 2022. And then I looked at the Liquidpedia, and it wasn't that bad. It was up and downs, of course, but there was some really solid performances. There was some top threes, stuff like that. And you kind of clawed back a decent-ish PGC performance. I think 9th in the world is pretty damn solid when you think about it. But the reason I thought like, oh, they had a bad year is because there's tons of expectations on you, right? There's tons of pressure on you to always perform because there's so many other teams in Europe that would have been really happy with your results, but you probably weren't happy at all, right?
No, I mean, I think that's like the mentality that's been created within FaZe. It's like you have to be. I would not say you have to win every tournament, because I think that's unrealistic in a game like PUBG. Like going to PGC saying you're gonna win, but I think anything within top 3 or top 4 is not like considered acceptable, depending on the circumstances, of course. I would say PGI 2021. I don't think we were. I think that was acceptable. I think we got 8th or 9th that, because we won 1 week.
Yeah.
That was 6 weeks, right? Let's say we won week.
You just won the wrong week. Yeah.
We just won the one. We won week 3. What we won, like, I don't know, and that ended us in like 8th or 9th. Let's say like Sonny's won the last week. Does that make them any better than us?
No.
In my head, no. Like
not at all.
But they are still the world champions. A Freak of Freaks won week 1, for example, right? They won 75k, which I think made them end up like 20th in the tournament. But they still won a week. It was just the format. But
yeah, but
last
they're
year,
waking up a world champion, bro.
I mean, there's been some crazy formats in PUBG. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, but last year I think we got like 3rd and 4th or 5th, like in the 2 PCSs, 9th at PTC.
Yeah,
that's not okay. Like, obviously not good enough for being FaZe. But I also think if you compare it to like the 2019 FaZe that won everything, if you look at like almost any esport, like Apex and like all these new other esports that has been, there's always a team, not always, but very often a team that is very, very, very dominant in the beginning. And then as people get better, it's very hard to stay that dominant, right? And stay that consistent and win everything. Somehow NLT, like Twisted Minds, have managed to do that the last 2 years, but they have also, like, I think personally, Battlelens and what they have done as a team have just been so far ahead of everyone else. I can only speak for myself when I say that I don't think any other team have been anywhere close to them. Even though they haven't won the world championship, I think they're the best team in the world. Um, they had just 4 perfect players, a crazy IGL that came up with a completely new meta on scouting with battling on top of the rocks. Um, so that was just so hard to beat
Yeah.
these last 2 or 3 years. But obviously, FaZe have to be better this year. And I think we have identified our problems pretty well. Um, but it's always hard when you while you're in it, because you have what I would say, like my 3 teammates last year were like we got to pick, like we as a team got to pick our teammates. So I
Yeah.
picked the players that I would say like were the best, right? Um, at least the best English speaking players that I want to play with. I would say if I could play with like some of the Russian guys, but obviously they don't speak English, they might be better at the position.
Yeah.
But like I'd see Digger effects all like
It's an insane
so
roster.
crazy individually. Also we had such a good team atmosphere, but I just don't think we managed to create like the right mentality in the team. And we were way too quiet on the team as well. Like I'm obviously the IGL. I think we needed like a lot of we kicked FaZe to get Diggory. We
Mm-hmm.
replaced a very, I would say, a not very good mechanical individual player in FaZe, but a very, very vocal player with like a good mentality, right? Which FaZe has. Like he has really a winner mentality, and like he can really bring a lot to the team. And then we got in a player like Diggory, who I would say like it's kind of the opposite. Like he's very quiet, but he's like one of the best mechanical players there is in the game. So it was a hard change.
Yeah.
Um, So we definitely needed last year like a lot more ideas and a lot more talking. Our team ended up being a lot just me talking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was kind of like my own fault, because like it's not like IT and Diggory's fault for like for them being quiet, because this is how they are as players.
Yeah.
And that is also fine that some players are that. I just think I think you on every team you can max have 2 quiet players, and we ended up with kind of 3. Like Fix is not really quiet. He talks a lot
He's
in
somewhere in the
fights.
middle, isn't he?
Yeah, he talks a lot in fights, but he will not come up with a lot of like ideas and like just call
Yeah.
like a rotation or like a crash on a compound that much, right? And it ended up a lot just being like me doing that last year. Um, so I think we just had the wrong combination of players, which is sometimes so hard to combine. Like you look at OP as well, right? They also
Yeah.
had a crazy roster, right? Like they actually ended up 5th in PTC, which was like very
Wild.
surprising to me, right?
Yeah.
So considering their year, like they were 1 game away in PCS 7 for
Yeah.
not making it, and then they end up in 5th.
They got saved by NLT winning the last game and
They
sort of
did,
like
yeah.
killing everyone around them. Yeah.
So, but they also have just the wrong players together, I would say, because any of those 4 players are in my head like top 10 English speaking players in Europe, right?
Okay.
So it's so hard putting the right players together on a team
Yeah.
in this game, and I don't think like people understand how much you can do, and it's really hard till you actually play with the players. And it doesn't mean that if someone's out from the team that they're necessarily bad. It just doesn't mean that they didn't fit into the environment that you tried to create and the balance, right?
Yeah. I think um there is just PUBG is so complex, right? Compared to other esports. It's way harder to judge how someone's gonna fit because there's so many different things. There's like so much like in-game stuff to think about, so much out-of-game stuff to think about, and you have to like the comms, the mentality, the experience. Like, is someone bad under pressure? Is someone, you know, quiet when you really need a loud guy? There's so many different sort of blocks to a player that makes it really hard. And makes it really hard to judge from the outside, like you just said, right? There's always those young guys who come up in every Twitch chatter and every viewer is like, oh my god, this guy is insane. And then he never really gets on a team that works because there's some sort of issue with the comms or with the mindset or whatever. But then you just can't see that from the outside.
Yeah,
So that's
I
really
think
hard.
if you want to be like the best team, you need to like really create such a good balance. Like it's like a ball like that goes back and forth between the IGL and the players. Like everyone needs to bring ideas. Everyone needs to respect each other. Everyone needs to like.
Yeah.
It just needs to be like a flow. And
And then
sometimes you.
it also has to work like on an interpersonal level, right? Like you
I
can't
mean,
create the four perfect players if you don't like each other. It's
I
just gonna
think
be really hard.
I think that's really hard. But I think like FaZe 2019, I don't think they had like the best. I don't think they got along
Okay.
necessarily the best, and they still won everything.
Yeah.
I think that's something I've tried to create a lot in this game. Is like that you are also kind of friends, like not necessarily friends, but like you get along. For example,
Yeah.
right? You between because the hard part of this game is if you die early in a competitive game or scrim game, and you have to sit there for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's just silence, right?
Yeah.
That can really ruin the atmosphere. But if you are good enough, like you can get through that, and I think I'm done with like not like done, but like I don't need to have
3
teammates
friends.
that I get along with anymore. Like I would rather, um, like when I joined FaZe to begin with, like for example Uber and Foss, like I obviously didn't get along as good as them with them as I got with Icy, because I mean Icy are really good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was very young. I think I was like 20 when I joined FaZe, and it was kind of hard for me, right? Because I was so used to my old team that we all got along well. Um, so it's weird for me, but I think looking back at it, that like it was more just probably me being immature and not having enough experience that I saw it as a problem that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get along with them, right?
And you weren't sort
Um,
of like super confident and like saying, okay, we don't need to get along. You're just a little bit out of
yeah,
place.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just so hard as well when you spend so much time together as well. Because then you go to Korea for 3 months, right? Like
Yeah.
you spend like 10, 11 hours a day together, right? Like
Yeah. And it's
you
very easy to have that pointed at as the issue, right? If things don't go well, people are like, yeah, these guys don't even play together. These guys like, oh,
Mhm.
this guy's always playing ranked with these guys. You know, it's very easy from the outside to say that that's the problem when maybe it isn't.
No,
It's interesting.
it's like playing with Uber, for example. Like Uber was like me and him probably didn't get along that well on a personal like level, just because like we were like very different places in life, I would say as well. Like
Okay.
but like he was so good. Like at his peak. Like I think Uber playing with him as a player, like he probably wasn't that motivated when I played with him as like some of the other years, because 2019 was like they won so much that year, right? And and like they worked. That's FaZe 2019 worked so hard as well. I remember like I think they played more than almost any other team. So then me joining, and then there being COVID, everything being from home, no lands. Like I would say, Uber is like a guy on land. Uber is like one of the like maybe the best land player in the world. You can see now PTC just won.
Yeah.
Everything being online, right? It was really hard for all of us. But like when he peaked, he was so good, and it was just it was a pleasure to play with him, right? But there was also other moments where it was really hard when we weren't doing good, and like we didn't get along that crazy well, right? So it's like a balance.
Yeah. It's also, I feel like in PUBG it's even rougher when things don't go well than in other games, because it's so hard to identify exactly what's the issue. It's not like it's not as simple
Mhm.
as straight as other esports. And then you have those situations like you just talked about in scrims or even on LAN. If you die early, you sit there for 40 minutes, not able to do anything. And
Yeah.
if then people are like maybe not full blaming each other, but if someone makes like a passive aggressive uh thing or whatever, you know, like just a few sentences can really ruin the mood. That's
Mhm.
pretty rough. You said you're ready for next year. I want to talk a little bit about next year, this year, whatever one you want to call it. For me, it feels
Yeah.
weird calling it this year. It's January,
Yeah,
but
because it
whatever.
hasn't started yet, right? Like it's
Yeah,
kind
we
of
haven't even
tradition.
started exactly.
Yeah.
What we know is not a lot, but we know that there'll be at least. I mean, we don't know, but the PGSs are surely going to be offline, so we're going to have at least 3 lands this year instead of 1.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, do you think that's good for your team? You think that's something you can thrive in and actually become a better competitor for PGC?
For sure. Like China have multiple lands a year, right? Which is I think makes it way easier for when they do go PTC. I'm definitely a person that's like I need to be kind of comfortable as well in order to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just getting more lands and getting to travel more and all these things will make it when you do go to PTC, you're gonna be more comfortable. It does give those extra like 10%.
Yeah.
And then also just like the motivation when you play in LAN compared to when you do everything online is like it's so different. So
Yeah.
I think for at least us, since we're gonna be at almost any LAN this year because of the global partner, I think it should be easy for us to stay motivated. But then again, if we don't even have to qualify for any of these tournaments, we're gonna have to play very few competitive games, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like we're instantly invited, and all these other teams get to play the qualifiers. I know some of the teams won't make it, that's gonna suck for them. But the teams that do make it,
Yeah.
they have an advantage
They are
over us because
warm.
they are warm, and we are really not gonna be warm except for scrims, and it's
Yeah.
very, very, very limited how warm you can get from that, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to figure out like a way to mentally prepare for that and get in form.
It's hard because you don't want to be subjected to all the qualifiers, but you want to be playing games. And I think that's one super interesting thing about this new format is you'll have the 2 global partners. Let's assume it's 2 for this region. I'm assuming the other one is Navi. We don't really know it just yet while we're recording
No,
this.
I don't even know if
Yeah,
like
exactly.
But I'm obviously like they won the world championship.
And they are the big org. I think that's the 2 factors, right? And they've stuck to PUBG forever. It's not like they just come in, picked up a team, won worlds or something.
They deserve it. If I had
for
to
sure
be honest, I
so
couldn't see who else would deserve it more than them.
Yeah, in Europe, it's hard to say right now. You can sort of argue about like, oh, there should be an MEA representative or whatever, but then performances haven't really been there, and it's hard to say. But let's just assume it's 2. It's not really the same system as it used to be with 8 partner teams, where you were saying, well, you know, we're getting into every final, we're not playing a lot of games, but we're absolutely guaranteed PGC, basically, because all the other teams have such a hard time getting through qualifiers. We're always in the finals. We should really, really be getting PGC if we don't completely suck. Now this year, there's only 2 partners. So there's a lot more slots. The qualifiers are a lot easier in that sense. I think you'll remember PCS5, for example. Europe was playing a 24 teams best of 12. Where 4 out of 24 go to the finals. That is mind-blowing. That's rolling dices, you know? And that made it really, really hard to consistently get through these qualifiers. Like in Entropic, for example, you miss out on you miss out on one of the finals, you don't do well in another, you're done. That's not going to happen this year because there's so many more slots in the qualifiers. So my thought is, in a way, it's going to be easier for the unpartnered teams to make it to PGC and to make it to PGSs and stuff. And maybe that makes it even worse for you as a partner team because you're not playing as many games, but you're still you don't have that massive advantage of going into Worlds almost like guaranteed. So it's so interesting. I can't wait till we have more information. But there's so many different ways that this could play out, I feel like.
I really hope that and I generally mean this. I hope that we are not invited to the final, but the stage before. I don't hope that there's just gonna be a 16-team lobby final for whatever like PCS or like whatever it's gonna be.
PGS,
whatever it's called, PG something, right? Because it's gonna be so weird to just instantly have to perform, especially since we don't know if there's gonna be any like other third-party events this year where we can somehow get a little bit warm, right? Because I think we're gonna be at a disadvantage then. Like if you guys just have to play straight out final, right? Like it's gonna be hard to just go on and win that.
Yeah, it goes to show a little bit how complicated PUBG is and how hard it is to make up these formats. I think we all give a lot of slack to sort of the esport departments and stuff because it's late again, it's bad, you know, orgs are leaving, whatever. But it's really hard to make those sort of decisions and have them all make sense at the same time. Yeah, I don't know. I can't wait. I think the other weird thing is you're going to be playing a regional series where people qualify for PGS, but you're already invited to PGS. So what are you playing for? And what do you do in the finals where for you, the things that are on the line aren't nearly as big as for the other teams? So there's like a lot of potentials for this to turn really, really weird and really strange in a way, right?
I'm really excited to see all of it announced soon, like with how like all the formats, like everything is going to be, because it's going to make a lot more sense. Because right now it's just a lot of guesses, right?
Yeah.
But like it feels like it can very easily turn out extremely odd if they haven't thought stuff through.
And I can guarantee you, doesn't matter what they do, there'll be a lot of people complaining. At this point, it doesn't matter what they do. There's probably gonna be some sort of shitstorm somewhere.
There will be 100%.
It's weird. It's strange. Especially, I was so sure about the APAC stuff as well that, you know, some of the big teams there would get partnered, and now apparently none of them are, and a lot of the Asian teams are already announced that they're not partnered either. Like, it's strange. It's weird. We'll see. It's gonna be exciting times.
Sure.
But it's also, I think I don't want to be sort of the, you know, when there's like casters and stuff, they always have supposed to be like positive only, and I'm not that kind of guy. But I think you have to cut people a little bit of slack, because like last year, everyone was complaining so much about all the invites to finals, all that sort of stuff, and that's pretty much gone now. That's not a thing anymore. You know, you get close qualifier invites. There's lots of opportunities. There's lots of things that are getting better. So people will very, very, very quickly forget about the things that actually improved and just focus on the negatives. So yeah, I'm really, I don't feel, I don't envy the esports teams in some way, because it feels like whatever they do, they get all the slack regardless.
Yeah, sure. Like and also like the EMEA team is also, I think it's often not on them. Like the wrong decision. I feel like they're often being held back by someone in Grafton, like Korea, right? That are telling them you cannot do this, you cannot do that.
Yeah, that's rough.
And they have to take all the shitstorm, but it's still not hard to not be mad at them.
Yeah. It's also, I'm not going to be sitting here pretending like they're doing everything perfectly. I just think it's sometimes a little bit unfair. People will very quickly say, oh, nice, we have a PNC this year. Instantly forget that and complain about the next change that's happening in PCS, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's gonna be so interesting. I can't wait. I hope we get a lot of information this week, and because obviously I have a lot of things on the line as well that I want to know about if they're happening and what's going on and all that sort of stuff. All right, there's a segment on this podcast that where I let the guests ask me some questions. And it was pretty chill and easy with Petulance. We talked a little bit about the goats of PUBG and stuff, and then I got absolutely roasted by Jimbo. So yeah, I'm excited. Do you have some questions for me?
I have 3 questions that I have thought of, and one of them is, who is your favorite PUBG player of all time?
Ooh, that's something I haven't even thought about. Let me think a little bit.
Of course, who have you enjoyed watching the most? I would say it could be a nation, it could be anyone.
I think it's a little bit biased because of recency. Like I think right now it's probably Example.
That is a very good option.
He is very clean, and he's not like, you know, there's a few of those that we just talked about, like young players that are like constantly weapon switching things around, scoping in and out, like jumping around. Example is like the opposite. He'll sprint for a bit, he'll ADS on the guy's head, and he'll put him down, you know? Like he's super clean, methodical, that kind of gameplay.
I think Example is like the most underrated player, and that sounds crazy to say because people rate him high. He's very highly rated, But like, I legit think that he has been the best individual player in PUBG in the last 2 years. Like there is not a single event I think I've seen Navi where he hasn't had over 1 KD, and like even when they have performed bad, I think they got 16th right before PTC, and he was still
up there.
Like, he was still like doing really well for them. So it's crazy to see.
There was a time when Navi was 2v4ing, it felt like, where Alia and Example were just crazy. And then Melman and Quizzy were not performing on their level at all, and it was rough sometimes. I think I'd have to put Betulins up there as well. I think it's a little bit harder to judge because we don't like see them as much, and you can't judge an IGL as much as you can judge a Fragger, I feel like. But results don't lie. Yeah, and then I think there's a lot of players I really, really like, but I never really thought about rating them that much. So it's a hard question for me.
All right, but I think taking example number 1, I respect that one a lot.
I think it's a good answer. It's recency bias, I feel like. If they wouldn't have won PGC, if someone would have popped off completely, would have been a different story. There's one thing that I've been thinking about quite a bit, which is, I feel like, a very underrated one as well, which is T-Bone.
I can see that.
And I think a lot of people that are on teams with him value him very highly. And a lot of people that have played with him value him very highly. Just the public doesn't as much, I think. Because he's like on and off, and he's not super flashy when he frags out and stuff. But I think he's always built very, very good teams around them. And he's been like, I think, like a captain role on a lot of teams he's been in. So I think there's a lot of unseen value there.
Yeah,
So that would be a good sort of honorable mention kind of guy.
fair. All right, on to the next question then. I was going to see who is your favorite like talent to work with, like caster or who can be who is just like this guy's great to work with.
That is a really good question. The thing is, I think I have very limited experience when it comes to that, right? I've casted a ton with Copter. I've casted a lot with Chunks, and they are both very good at sort of filling the gaps. Like my hype is pretty damn bad, but I'm there to sort of provide insight and talk about the game. So it's good to have those kind of guys on your side.
Yeah.
So, and then there's people like analysts and stuff on the desk. I think if you would phrase it differently, if you say like, who's your favorite talent?
You can also do that.
I'd probably be going for someone like Kalaris. I think he's like super professional. He has a very good sort of charisma on the desk and that kind of stuff.
He's
and then
so good.
Toffees is the same thing in NA. I just haven't worked with him as much because he's NA. But sort of good energy, knows what they're talking about, puts in the work, that kind of stuff. And then if you're asking me who to work with, it probably just has to be Chunks because we have really good synergy together, I think. But yeah, I don't want to get too political about this, but I think it's a hard question to answer because of that. But it's also people. I don't think the PUBG scene really values Copter as much as they should. If people knew what kind of effort goes into PSL and what he's doing behind the scenes to keep that going and to try and keep price pools decent, while like he's out there and he gets a budget from PUBG and he's trying to reduce the talent budget as much as he can to give more out to the players and that kind of stuff that people just don't notice. They just take it for granted. So yeah, sorry to get too political about this.
Oh,
but that's
it's
my
fine.
answer.
Copter is like he's amazing. Like sometimes his casting is a bit like he has a very heavy accent and stuff, but like as a person and what he has done is like he's up there for like one of the most valuable in the EU scene. In my opinion.
I think so too.
All right, and then to the last question: what top European team do you think is going to disappoint the most this year?
Ooh. The problem is right now, until the first regional, we don't have that many top European teams. We have like
it's hard.
We have like FaZe, we have Navi, we have Twisted Minds.
QM, I would say as well.
QM is up there, true. But for me, QM is like, if they do badly, it's not a disappointment because they're very up and down. They're very inconsistent.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true.
So it's not your.
They only qualified because someone got banned. Like someone got banned from was it like PCS 7 like in the qualifiers? I think someone was a cheating team, and that's the only reason why they made it.
Yeah, and then they just go to PGC because of that. It's wild.
And then they win PCS, and then they go to PGC. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's also I was sort of torn, right? There is tons and tons of people that were saying like Dante is probably cheating, someone's fishy on that team, whatever. I was pretty happy to see them perform much better than they did last PGC, because last PGC was a disaster, and that sort of fueled more of the rumors, right? Like people popping off online and then getting 3 kills in 20 games offline, whatever, that kind of stuff. So I'm happy for them, but they're not on my list of like consistent top teams. And right now, I think neither of the MEA teams really is either. Like a BBL, a DA, a Foot, they're all like super inconsistent. So I'd say top teams that could disappoint. If I wasn't sitting on a podcast with you right now, I'd probably say FaZe.
And that's fair. Like you can say that
because I think there will be lots of eyes on you, like we talked about earlier. There is lots of pressure, and there's a lot of potential for stuff to go wrong. On a fresh team, you never really know what's going to happen. But then another good answer, I think, is probably Navi. Again, PGC winners, insane performance for them. 14th in PCS 7. You know, like what the hell? There's definitely like things that are going very right there, and there's things that go wrong sometimes. So I think they have a chance to disappoint. Oh, I have a good one. I forgot about Entropic.
Oh, yeah,
Entropic is a good answer.
Yeah, we forgot about them actually.
Entropic is a pretty good answer.
They
But they're also so unpredictable.
They are really like up and down with that. They are probably the most up and down. Like
Yeah.
they had a horrible PDC till they won a winner with chicken in the game.
Yeah.
Like we had a bad PDC, but they have a way worse.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And they are like win PCS 6 and then don't really perform in PCS 7. You know, that's the same thing with Navi, right? Navi was like good and then bad and then wins PGC.
They weren't even in. Were they even in PCS 7? It like they didn't qualify.
Entropic?
Yeah, but they in PCS. I don't think. Let me just Google that quick. PCS 7.
I think they were.
Were they?
I think they were.
No, they weren't. They weren't
What?
PCS 7.
Yeah. Did they not make it in like last chance or something? Did they play all the stages?
No, they didn't make it. It was yeah, they're not there on the Wikipedia.
I remember they didn't make it in groups, but groups was kind of hard, right? That was the top 4 kind of thing. Damn, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Wild.
So they are up and down as well.
That is
but
very up and down.
This is a game as well, though. It's so hard to have the consistency that Twisted Minds have, which is why
which is why they're so crazy.
Yeah, that's why I think they're the best team, just because they're always top 3. Like they're always top 3, and being able to do that is just like it's just because they're so good at playing off information. Because all those other teams, we take so many guesses because we aren't as good as playing us.
Yeah.
Like they're the only team that can play off information as they do. So all those other team, we take guesses, like very often, like calculated guesses, right? And so sometimes in tournaments, they just like really don't work off a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
And other tournaments, like they really like you.
It introduces way more variance to your gameplay as well, right? If you're guessing more, it's like there's way more randomness in your game than if you always know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the scariest part about Twisted Minds is their consistency, for sure. It's just not been done by other PUBG teams, really. Even like there was maybe a year where FaZe was insane, like you said, for example, but for this long a time to be this consistent, I can't really remember anything like that. And
they've done it for like three years now. 3 years.
Insanity.
Like
and
FaZe maybe did it for like.
Even if you look at like Gen G or something, that was like always different rosters. There was like a lot of roster changes in it where they won PGC 2019 and then they did well after. But yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I think Entropic is a good answer. I love the guys, but I think judging on like their PGC performance and how things seem to be going on that team, I think they're a candidate that might disappoint a few people next year for sure.
Yeah, agree.
That was part 1 of the episode with Gustav. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any feedback, you can always leave that as a review, or you can join the Discord where we have a podcast related channel. The second part of this episode will be coming out later this week, probably around sort of end of this week, Thursday, Friday kind of thing. Because we just want to make sure that we have all the important information, and I want to give the episode a few days as well for people to watch it, so no one gets falling behind. If you want to support this kind of content, just doing all the YouTube stuff, giving a good review, following me on Twitter is super appreciated. That's all free. You can also use my creator code for free, and there'll be a link in the description for that. And if you are absolutely crazy, then I have made a Patreon for the few insane individuals that really just want to give me money. That's okay too. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the episode with Gustav. Part 2 in a few days, and I'll see you guys there.